the Messiah. No offense, Perdre, but that has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Why not me?
Have you met yourself? Perdre, you drink, you fight, you like to break people's arms just to hear the sounds they make.
Howdy, pilgrims, and thanks for tuning in to Season 4 of Preacher vs. Preacher. It's a comparison companion, where each week we get together and we not only recap AMC's series Preacher, but we directly compare it to the 1990s comics it's based on. I say this every time. It's from Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. Who are we? I'm Bill Sweeney. You might know me from the Wicked Theory podcast. I'm joined this time by my buddy, Stephanie Muniz. You should know her from the Gotham Lights podcast, which became the Orville Lights podcast, and now she's on Moving the Needle podcast. I hope you can keep track, because you should track her down. Steph, say hello to the people so they know that you're real.
Hello, people.
Oh, see, that's it. She follows orders and directions. It's not like last time. It was chaos. No, that's not true at all. Last week's co-host, you'll hear him again. But Steph's here, and
I am.
Steph watched this show. She watched this week's episode. Steph, like a little bit of your thoughts. Let's take the temperature of the room on this week's episode from you. We'll start with you first. Overall thoughts, thinking.
Yeah.
That sums it up right there.
Yeah. I mean, not to get too far ahead of ourselves because we'll get into it. But I mean, there were parts of it that I really liked that were kind of, I would say, an homage to the book. It kind of kept it
an homage.
real similar. But there were other parts that I really found myself during this episode going, did it happen that way in the book? I don't remember, and so I had a lot of those instances during this episode, where I mean, having watched the last seasons, after a while you realize that you really have to think of them as two separate things, because it's not always going to be exact, and a lot of the times it was interesting that way to kind of see a new take on certain things and have something new and interesting with the characters, the storyline. So often it's been really interesting, and I liked the way they kind of went about a lot of those things. But this one was a little different.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. I was kind of feeling like mixed bag a little on this one. Like I definitely had fun with it to a certain point, and then I continued to kind of have some fun. I mean, to see when stuff pops up from the book, that's always a nice little rush and all that. And, it feels like they're really moving it at a clip now where it's like, let's kind of see how much from the book we can squeeze in, even if it's a momentary reference. Let's try to see how many things we can hit, no matter, we're really remixing it now. Like, it's a mad dash to kind of see what we can put in and link up. So yeah, on one hand, it was like, I was kind of enjoying it overall too. The spirit and the tone, they were doing some cool, wild stuff. There was a lot going on in this one. And, then there's some other stuff too that's a little, well, it's a little bumpy. We'll get to it. We have a tweet we're going to get to when we go through the recap and we kind of get to that part. And so just as a heads up, this may digest into a conversation about morals and like what's the deal?
Morality
And like who's got any of that lately on this on this TV show we're watching. So I guess we'll just kind of start heading into it. So we're covering Deviant, episode 3 of season 4. This show, we're on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music. Hey, folks, please, this is it. If this is the end for Preacher, this is the end for this here. So why not write a review, subscribe, or something now on your podcast play of choice? I mean, you probably meant to. I'm sure that you meant to this whole time. Do it now before it's too late.
We know you're busy, but just spare a few moments.
I mean, if you're actually holding that same device in your hand now,
yeah.
Like, I don't want to give your thumb a cramp, but would you?
While you're listening to this episode, hit pause, go to your, little button where it says leave a review or whatever, and then of course come back. Finish listening, but at least then you helped us out.
And this is the part where we say to you, okay, go do that. We'll wait.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for coming back, and let's carry on. Thanks for giving us that rating and review. You can find us on Twitter. Steph, what's your handle on Twitter if people want to find you?
Mine's at BadWolfBay87.
You can find me at Wicked Theory. You can find this show at Preach vs. Preach. Send us an email, pvp@wickedtheory.com. If you put your Twitter handle on that, we'll try and give you a shout-out. But, all right, spoiler warning part. This is season 4. We hope you've read the books, and if you haven't and you don't care, that's cool, too. We're going to kind of be a little loose with it, but I'm going to go through most of the beats of the episode. I told Steph beforehand she's to feel free and jump in and stop me in case I'm not, covering on something. She wants to say something. Go for it, girl. If you were in the room.
And I will.
And if you were in the room, I'd say just throw stuff at me, because that's always fun. There's a bell that we've had, I don't know, maybe since season 1, but the whole point of the book bell is when we kind of find something, see something, something arrives in this show that's actually from the books. We celebrate a little bit. We get a little excited, because all of season 1 was a build-up to page 1 of the comics.
It really was.
It really kind of was. Well, page 3, I should say, of the comic.
You were just poised, waiting to hit that bell, and it never came, and then finally, it's yes.
Well, I'll tell you now, there is. I've got a few bells here marked off, and you might even be want to interject at any time, be like, Bill, I think that deserves a bell. Maybe feel free if I'm not hitting it on something you expect me to.
I got you.
With that, I think we just kind of get into it now. We kind of do the thing. I think we kind of do the thing. I kind of ring this bell. It's a little low. Let me do that again because kids at home really couldn't hear it, and I want to be official about these things. Okay. All right. Good. Church is in session, I guess. I don't know. All right. So this is Deviant. This is episode 3 of season 4, which starts with, of all things, a facial cream commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, I'm sure it must have gotten somebody, but as soon as it started, I'm like, oh, I know this show. This is obviously a fake ad. Within milliseconds, I'm like, oh, this has got to be something.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No.
Initially, it fooled me a little bit, but then I went, "Oh wait, no, this." And Palmer too, because we're sitting there watching, and he said, "For a moment, I thought this was a commercial," and I went, "Yeah," but I knew it was within the show, like a commercial in the show. But it was really well done. Like they really had it like spot on to those like really schmaltzy kind of just hoity-toity perfume commercials that you see on TV, like Dior.
I felt like it was just like a Calvin Klein commercial, but in color. Like I felt like that was like the note that they gave each other for this one. Now, as a, I don't buy many facial creams, Steph. I don't know about you as a lady. Is this a product you would pick up?
I mean, no.
No.
I don't usually buy a lot of face creams. I don't wear a lot of makeup. So for me, no. As I get older, though, I'm thinking, like, maybe I should start with some facial cream. Well, like what age do I need that?
Well, this one's got rejuvenating properties. So.
Oh, yes, that is very true.
But it does say foreskins, like, right on the jar, if I remember correctly. So I don't know how that's going to help sales. But
I think they were maybe hoping that people wouldn't pick up on that little detail. Like they were going to be fooled by the hot guy asking her, how do you do it?
She's got her secrets. But speaking of not picking up on things, one of the things it kind of goes by really quick, and if you're not paying attention, is that's actually we cut to Cassidy, right? Mm-hmm. In what's actually a flash forward.
Yeah.
And I saw some people on Twitter were kind of thrown by it. And they were, they kind of haven't parsed out that we're doing a lot of time jumping around in this season. And I think it's so that we can kind of maximize as much story as possible.
Yeah.
All right. So if we can only jump over to this story a little bit and give it a couple of beats and not, we're not going to get too deep on it, which, we see actually later on some more. But anyway, in this scene, Cassidy's basically strapped in still, and now they've kind of automated the whole circumcision process.
Industrial.
Yeah, that's the note. That's the word I have. It's an industrial machine now that auto cuts his peen in a Bensonhurst warehouse, and they're basically just packing up the facial cream, and that's the cold open for the show.
Yeah, and it's funny the way they kind of just cut in that scene so abruptly. I can understand why it probably threw people off, but you're also thinking like that's a weird way to end that commercial.
Right,
like screaming in their warehouse.
This
like,
must be a European product or something. Like, this ad campaign is strange. So when we come back, we kind of jump in with Santa Killers and Arseface. They're in Texas, walking.
Still in Texas.
Still walking. A lot of walking. But Eugene's feet hurt, so he's
too much walking.
It's too much. He's not built for it.
No.
Not like the Santa Killers is anyway. And basically, what we get out of that scene is Eugene just kind of reiterating everything is God's plan, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just establishing them really early on because we'll come back to them later. So we cut to Jesse, who's on the plane.
Yeah, well, before that, what I really liked about that scene between Arseface and the Santa Killers also is we finally get Eugene asking what I'm sure all of us have asked is, why don't they just grab a car? He's like, we could just hitchhike. Like, we just...
we could speed this up a little bit, you know?
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah. So... which is some foreshadowing because later on they'll get one. So Jesse's on the plane, and this is where we kind of start the flashback that will be most of what's going on with Jesse throughout this episode. And it's their way, I think, of just saying, well, Jesse's going to be on like some 19-hour flight. How do we fill all this time? Well, the whole thing that happened in Desad's House of Entertainment last week, we see it this week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the whole Jesse going back in there kind of thing. So we flash back to the Middle East, just randomly the Middle East.
Yes, which I really have to say, I liked that you and Ed brought that up last week because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, wow, the Middle East sure looks like, Atlanta. So...
yeah. Well, they're shooting down in Australia. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they're shooting in Australia, so now it's just like, I expect koalas to pop out by accident any minute.
Yeah, just a kangaroo.
And, and again, still not sure how Tulip got the car there, but whatever.
Yeah. That was another thing I loved too, because I literally told that to Palmer when we were watching it. I said, how did they get? I mean, I know how because I work in relocation, so I understand how car shipments work. But I'm like,
sure.
Why would you take up the hassle of shipping a car to the Middle East?
As somebody who knows about that, real quick.
Yeah.
What does it seem like for you would take to get your Chevelle or whatever that is? How long would that take? Probably. Because you could fly it, I guess, but most people are going to ship it by boat, right?
Yeah, it's mostly going to be by boat, and that you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of waiting.
Yeah.
Are they on the boat this whole time? I don't think so. They're probably going to take a plane. So I'm thinking they must have bribed somebody to put it on a big cargo plane or something, and then flew it over there because TV, why not?
Yeah. Besides, we don't got time to explain that.
Exactly. She brought the car. That's how much she likes the car.
I can only imagine. See, it would be worth it to see just for the argument between Jesse and Tulip about why are we don't. She's like, no, Jesse, I'm bringing the damn car.
Exactly. She's like, we're taking the car, and then she leaves the car with her new pal from the bar. So
So basically, this is where he walks into Desad's house, and we get to see the real collection of freaks. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give it a bell. This is stuff from the book that accurate more or less, and should have seen earlier. In the run of the books, basically, this is a thing that would have came up earlier. It wasn't in the Middle East. I think this was down in Louisiana.
Yeah, I think so. It was at least closer to Angelville, I think, because they go from, I think, one to the other. I think they start at Angelville and then eventually wind up in Jesus Desad's house, because I was mentioning to Bill before we started that I had kind of reread a little bit of book 2 to refamiliarize myself with Jesus Desad and that whole kind of scene and how that all turned out. And as far as the inhabitants are portrayed, it's very accurate. As far as you have the gimps and the people in the costumes and the skin tight suits. And although what I liked in this version, at least the TV version, was that you had a furry,
Yeah.
you had more updated kinks.
Yes,
involved
yeah, and
in the
everybody
show.
was in here. Everybody's like, yeah, sure, you get some leather gimps and stuff, but for the most part, everybody is like a character. Like, there's a lot of like character types going on.
A lot more modernized, a little bit more odd. Like you had this guy in like full samurai like outfit, but with like his like this face mask going on. You had someone completely in saran wrap. Like,
Yeah, Sergeant Kabuki Man, if anybody knows who
Yeah.
that is basically, who was running around. But him and Desaad have an exchange. Jesse pops him in the face once he kind of hears what he knows is going on, that, there's a kid upstairs. And I guess I looked away for a second, and somebody blew smoke in his face at that point? Or,
Well,
or right when he walks in?
Yeah, it's right when he walks in. So
Okay.
he rings the doorbell, bangs on the door. They open the door, and there's a woman standing there who just immediately blows smoke into his face.
Gotcha.
And I didn't think too much of it either when he first walked in. I thought, oh, it's just she's smoking. She blows smoke in his face, kind of like a ambiance or something. Who knows?
Yeah, because
But
they do
then
this.
he walks in,
they
and
do
it's
this
it's only
Yeah, they do this disorientation thing as he's heading for the stairs.
The camera tilts. He's wobbly on his feet, and I too, it didn't kind of dawn on me that it was the smoke until I said, wait, is he drugged? Like what happened? And Palmer said, yeah, he's like the smoke. She blew smoke in his face. I went, oh right, okay, that makes sense.
I
That
didn't even
makes sense.
see it, so I'm thinking, oh, something bigger is going on. Like, oh, maybe there's something in the house, So I'm glad that, like, in a couple of scenes later, somebody actually says it actually. Oh, my head! Someone blew smoke in my face. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, well, he says it to the kid. He finds the kid, and the kid says, "You're worse off than I am." He's like, "Well, you know what? Some lady blew smoke in my face. I'm not having a good day."
I'm trying here, buddy.
Exactly. But I love the kid's response where he's like, "I'm making like $30 a day. I'm fine, dude," or bro. Like he's using all this like American slang.
Yeah,
It's like little Mideastern kid. I thought that was hilarious.
So at this point, so he starts going up the stairs and his head's getting all lost in it. We cut to Tulip, and she's in a gurney inside Masada. She's still in disguise.
Yep. I think she wakes up in the hospital bed, doesn't she?
Yeah. I'm sorry, gurney, hospital bed. I'm just thinking the triage area kind of thing. So she's fine, but the doc says that she has to take a psych test.
Psych eval.
Psych eval. And that's not going to go down. What's great about it is I kind of get the impression that she knows, well, fuck off. I ain't got time, but I would fail it anyway.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was putting it. But basically, he keeps telling her to sit back, sit down. He touches her twice. She warns him. He does it again. And, shit
goes down.
Shit goes down. And, she starts...
well, because he did it in that kind of like that really patronizing, like hand on the shoulder kind of thing where he pushes her back. And, a gal like Tulip, she's going to have a bone to pick with that.
You can't be dismissive. She will not be dismissed, that last one is the one that breaks it back because that's the one it really does feel like the most just okay girl, like so these guys, they deserve the bedpan across the face.
Not only that, like she rips out her IV and like stabs the
oh, that's right. She janks that guy with it.
Yeah, it's like, I told you not to touch me, and she yanks out her IV and just stabs him, and then that's when she starts punching and flailing, grabs the bedpan, and you see this nurse like in the background treating some other patient, and she just doesn't seem to even like notice. It's great. Like she's just going about her business. Meanwhile, there's this fight happening, and then finally another nurse comes up and just jabs Tulip with some sedatives, and
and in that great way of TV, just knocks her right out. So
yeah. And she's like, oh, shit, like slow-mo.
So then we cut to Cassidy. And it's a little bit of a flashback to the last episode where Toscani was kind of going on about he's here because of his own guilt and stuff like that. That's why he comes back. And so Cassidy's has this rolling around in his head a lot. And then the angel from up above, is kind of like, come on, like, now's the time to rally, and you're gonna go fuck shit up,
Yeah, he's like, what's the plan? I mean, come on, we're gonna escape, and
Cassie's like, meh.
yeah, no,
He's
I'm
like,
not gonna do anything. Although first the angel's like, oh right, we'll just lie in wait, and then we'll strike and we'll attack our prey, and he's all into it, and Cassidy's like, no, I'm just gonna, I'm literally not gonna do anything.
No, he's like, I'm good. I'm taking a nap.
Yeah, and the angel just is, oh well, that's boring. But then they, have this like buddy moment, and I love that finally gets us to a little bit of Cassidy's backstory.
Yeah. But next is Saint Killers and Earthface. They're still walking. But Earthface is, he's hungry, so they end up at a diner.
Yeah, because he saw a sign that said "food 1 mile."
He's like, thank God.
He's like, okay, well, we're stopping, and he literally stops in the middle of the street, and it's the Saint Killers. He senses it, and he turns around. And he goes, I'm hungry, and you could just see it. He's just fine. We'll go to the diner, and I love that he tries to order whiskey, and the waitress says, "This is a family establishment. If you want whiskey, you're gonna just have to keep moving." And poor Eugene is just like, no. He's gonna have a pie. This turtle pie.
Well, he's gonna have some turtle pie, which turns out to sound delicious when you look it up. It's like it's a cookie layer, it's ice cream, it's pecans, some caramel pockets. If I read the description right, I don't know what that means, but
caramel pockets. It's like pockets of gooey caramel.
No, I get it. I'm just saying I haven't experienced it yet, and I want it.
Well, you've got all sorts of diners, so find one.
I'll keep an eye.
Make you turtle pie.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for it. And he gets I think like some chicken fried steak and stuff. Whatever his is blended.
Yeah.
And
I think it's chicken fried steak and then mashed potatoes and gravy all blended together.
Oh, the waitress's face is great, but trying to keep the composure as she retches inside.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Kudos to her.
Kudos to her for keeping it together. So, and basically the conversation between the two of them at the table is, Earthface is like, what if Jesse just apologizes? I know you want to kill him, but what if he just says sorry? But it's really not going to be good enough for the Saint Killers. He's like, well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes, buddy.
Yeah, well, he basically says, he sent me to hell. So it's really like, how do you expect me to accept an apology from that guy? And he even blames everything on Jesse. He's like, he killed my family and he sent me to hell and all this stuff. And Eugene's like, oh, well, what if it's really, really like sincere apology?
What if he really means it? Eugene is so sweethearted. Like, yeah, but if he means it, like that's all that matters. Like, an apology.
Exactly.
The power
just like God says, it's good in whatnot. And he just decides, I'm gonna go to the potty.
It's good. It's good and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does ask him. He goes, "Do you ever go to the potty?"
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if Santa Claus doesn't have to eat, I guess he doesn't have to poop. I mean,
exactly. I think he knows the answer, but he asks anyway. And I think immediately after, just the look that the Santa Killers gives him, he's like, okay, yeah, no, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the potty.
So, and basically, it's got me thinking that since he doesn't eat really, that turtle pie is gonna run right through him. The old Santa Killers. So from there, we go back to Jesse. And the Angels gonna try and give him a pep talk, and to get him going, So he asks him, "Have you ever seen Hoosiers?" And cuts right into Gene Hackman's speech.
The full audio, like even in Gene Hackman's voice, it was perfect. But it's coming out of the angel's mouth, and it just was fantastic.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I immediately thought of Ed, and what a film. Film, nerd, sports, like hit all his nerd quadrants.
He probably was freaking out.
He's probably freaking out. Like, how do they even talk the rights holders into letting them do this? But and so. The angel does it, exactly. But, still not getting much of a reaction out of Cassidy. But basically, Cassidy rolls right into a backstory. Angel sees it coming, basically says that to him. Oh, I guess we're getting ready for a backstory here,
Yeah.
But I'm gonna ring the bell for it. It jumps to Ireland, 1916, and we get like a really truncated kind of version of Cassidy's backstory.
Which I mean was really accurate. They cut out a few parts here and there, but it was very accurate to the book, because in the book we find out that is exactly the time, because he was part of the I think the what was it called, the resistance, or the
Irish Republican Army. I don't know if it's that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's IRA, but anyways, resistance against the British in Ireland.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were fighting, so he was a part of the Irish side of that, and left with a friend, and so them kind of joining up together and going off to fight, and then him kind of getting separated from everyone and trying to run away, and then getting attacked by something in a little kind of swampy, watery ditch. That's like, yes.
His very own Swamp Thing jumps out and,
exactly.
and gets him. So let's see.
Although I think the only difference to the book was, I think he was injured in the book. Like, I think I remember him being a lot weaker. Like he kind of just is really tired or injured or weak, and then kind of just, he can't fight back as much.
Yeah.
In this one though, I mean, he's really fighting in the water, and he gets away, only for then the thing to come jumping out at him. And I mean, the special effects on that thing were really good.
Yeah,
it was
that thing,
like ghoulish zombie vampire type thing that just looks like it had been in the water for a really long time.
for way too long. Gotta get out of the water there, buddy. It's not doing good for your skin. I mean, unless you had some of that facial cream. But yeah, and it's the truncated version of the war stuff. I mean, it goes on protracted more, but those same events kind of happen where. Mm-hmm. I mean, at least in the comics, you understand the relationship with Billy and who that is to him, and so when he does die, you do kind of feel it for Cassidy. Here, there's like no time to develop anything, because we're again doing this truncated kind of storytelling now to jam so much into the season that it's like we want to give it to the people, to the audience. So here's it in a nutshell. It's kind of condensed thing. The vampire stuff is spot on. I feel like the only real changes are with the Billy, and it's a little more protracted in the book. They go to this whole other location. I think they're locked down, kind of cornered in this building. I think there's some shootout stuff with a sniper or whatever. But
although I think what helped with this version in the TV show is that they made Billy a little bit younger than Cassidy, so he looked up to Cassidy. Cassidy was supposed to take care of him, so you did get that sense from it. So you could kind of understand a little bit why Cassidy felt the guilt that he felt for the poor kid getting his foot blown off, and then he gets stabbed in the back with a bayonet. All while Cassidy's just hiding.
Now Billy is his brother, right? I think. I'm not 100% on that myself. My memory is a little foggy on whether or not they were just friends or if he was related.
In the show they weren't. In the show they were friends.
Yeah, they don't even mention
but I can't recall in the book if they were related or not.
Or
if they were just really good friends, like brothers.
Right. I'm sure someone correct us on Twitter or in an email. Actually, do it in an email. Don't do it publicly. Nah, do whatever you want. Shame us.
We won't be upset.
No, and especially not Stephanie. She's gonna come and go. I got to be here every week. So if anybody's
I don't care at all. Tweet us. Come on, bring it on.
Hey, look, the whole concept of this podcast has gone out the window anyway. So let's just have fun, So anyway, there's an explosion. Billy gets his leg blown off. He's attacked by the vampire. He goes home, but he doesn't go in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like where that kind of ends. We exit the flashback. Cassie was about to go see his dear old mom, and can't do it. And then
I think it was his grandmother, at least in.
Fair enough. I wasn't sure. You called it Granny, right?
It was Granny or a grandma or something, because it was the priest with the little old style hearing aid that he had.
Right, I forgot.
that was his grandfather that told him, make us
Gotcha.
proud and everything. You're grown up now, because his father was actually the one that he said would probably eat the food that she was going to keep warm for him.
Right.
So you had the whole family. You had the two grandparents, the father. I didn't see the mother, but she could have been there as well. But then there was a bunch of like little brothers and sisters, and
no time at all for the dad either. I managed to get like one joke in at his expense, but he gets no lines.
I don't think he has a speaking line. I think he just kind of like smiles, nods a little bit, and they move on.
They make a goofy look.
It was all about the grandmother. Like that's where he had the connection, and she was, when he goes back, you see her face looking out the window, expectantly waiting for Cassidy to return,
right.
and he doesn't, and even though he's so close, but then he turns away, and he even ends up telling the angel he couldn't face them for what he had become. And it wasn't even just the fact that he'd become a vampire. He said because of what he had let happen to Billy.
Yeah.
That was a good distinction, a nice distinction that they made there. It wasn't just the fact that he was now a monster, but that he felt like he had let Billy down and let him die because he just hid there while they killed him.
Yeah, so that he's been carrying his guilt for that. Now we're supposed to, kind of put that into his bag of issues of.
Yeah, where he felt like he was kind of a coward, and he failed Billy, he failed his family, so all sorts of Irish guilt.
It's always Billy. I'm just gonna say it. It's always Billy. All right.
You would know.
That's what I'm saying. This is what I gotta deal with. All right, and this when we come back, I think there was angels. The angel was singing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they bond over like Irish like drinking songs and stuff.
Right.
So the two of them singing and having a good old time, and it's great. Like the angel picks up an Irish accent on and off. It's great.
Oh, he loves Ireland. We cut to Featherstone. She's basically at Tulip's hotel room or wherever Tulip was staying.
Yeah. You know what? Before we move on, the one thing that I liked was that the angel brings up New York, because I think they also talk about Bendenhurst and stuff like that, and they bring up New York, which I got really excited for a moment, because then I thought we were going to get a New York Cassidy flashback.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, at this point, I feel like, we'll kind of get to it, but I feel like almost anything now that we kind of thought maybe we wouldn't see, we might, like, in a way, because if we're going to just do these brief interludes of either flashbacks or flash forwards or whatever, but we're not going to do, we're going to do it so we can fuck with time a little bit. I mean, who knows what we might get.
Yeah, and especially maybe once he gets to Bendenhurst, maybe that's a good opportunity for another flashback, and then we get the New York flashback. So it's sad that we didn't get it this time, and I got all excited, but then, right. It was almost towards the end. So
it's starting to feel like that a little bit, where it looks like they're setting up some things where we'll set it up, and then in the next episode maybe we'll double back kind of thing, to the point where we double back all the way to how this season started in episode 1 with a flash forward, at a point where Tulip and Cassidy kiss and he's got blonde highlights.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why she kissed him. We all know it's because of the blonde highlights. I mean, let's just be honest. You get a good haircut. Ladies swoon. So with that, Tulip, Featherstone's at Tulip's place. She's going through her stuff. Not much happens there, but she does find the wig head, and she kind of puts it together. And so she
figures it out. It's like, oh crap, Tulip's in Masada.
Yeah, she makes a beeline back. Now we do this thing, which is a fake out, but it's black and white, and it's like Jesse reading the letter, and it's a nightmare Tulip's having. So you can't really take any of it as actually what was in the letter. Definitely not the very end, because it seems like it ramps up just to get scary and then wake her up. You know what I mean, kind of thing.
Yeah. You think that at least the beginning is exactly what Jesse most likely wrote to her, because we really didn't get to hear it or have her read it, only know that, okay, he wrote a letter saying, I'm sorry, I've got to leave, I'm going to chase after God. Cassidy's just whatever.
Yeah.
And so we do get a little bit of that. We get him saying, Tulip, sorry that, you probably hate me for leaving you behind, and not much explanation, just up and leaving, yada, yada. And we're like, okay, that's fine. And then all of a sudden he goes, but it's because you're a lying bitch.
You're a lying bitch. And she's like, whoa,
yeah.
hey.
That she wakes up, which of course is back to that conversation where he flat out asked her, did you sleep with Cassidy? And she, of course, lied and said, no, I didn't.
No.
But one thing that I was thinking at the same time when she said that in that other episode, I was thinking, well, I mean, they really didn't sleep, so she's really not technically lying to him. They had sex. They didn't really sleep together.
And like, if he had said, "Did you have sex with him?" she might be like, "No, we fucked." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
it's always going to be a curve on this test question.
Exactly. She can just get away with it.
So she wakes up and she's in the hospital. Now she's strapped down, and basically the doctor starts up the Rorschach test, which as soon as it starts, we jump away from. But that's pretty much all that kind of goes down there. Jesse at Desaad's House of Extremes. He's like disoriented. We're kind of reminded that he's got no boots on. We see his his socks and his feet from that angle, because I had totally forgotten that he didn't have his boots. So I'm glad they kind of reestablished.
Time had still been walking around in socks.
Yeah.
You would have thought once he had gotten to the airport, instead of just having, forcing people to let him smoke inside, that he would have just forced someone to give him shoes.
I had just kind of forgotten. I had just forgotten that
I can smoke in here. It's fine. You're gonna take me to somewhere and no shoes. No, nothing. He's like, nope, I need to smoke in here, and that's all I care about.
And I'm sure everything else was too. Like, I don't need a ticket. You know what I mean? Or just anything, really. Fucking, So he's in there, and we see some more. We see Sergeant Kabuki Man and some of the other cool people in the house. But Jesse finds the kid.
Yep.
He's in there with a photographer, some guy taking pictures. The guy's like, my hour's not even up yet. That's all Jesse's got to hear. Basically, knocks him right out. The kid doesn't really want to go.
He basically tells Jesse, I'm making
I'm making $35. I got to hear. I'm making $35 an hour in a third world country. You're the one who's messed up here, guy.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to give it to the kid. It's like he knows what's happening, and that scene, kind of, sort of, it's like a sort of bell. It's not quite a bell, but
but it's bellish. We'll give it a thunk. We'll give it like a dead bell.
Exactly, because the book does have a child that, and there's a camera. Only in the book, it's Jesse stumbles into a room looking for Desaad in the book, and there's a video camera, and you've got a couple that's in the bed, and Jesse goes, "Oh, you guys filming a porno?" And then before Desaad has a chance to answer, Jesse turns, and there's this kid that's standing there kind of wrapped in a blanket crying, and that's kind of what sets Jesse off. So there was definitely a kid and a camera in the book, but it was definitely a little bit different. This one seemed that the kid was much more willing, because he just had to sit there in some weird little sailor outfit and have people take pictures. But
the kid's a little too savvy for his own good. Like you were saying before, he's dropping bros and dudes. He's got he's got his American colloquialisms down. I don't know what shows he's watching to keep track, but he's getting a lot of, I don't know, Orange County. No, that's not on anymore, right?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Remember, Ben McKenzie went on to do Gotham.
That's true. Well, there'll be a reunion soon then, right? I mean, they're doing 90210 now,
exactly,
so any day now.
Exactly.
We're going to bring back the OC. So with that, so this triggers like a fight scene, the likes of which we have not seen in a while on Preacher. Preacher loves to do these kind of outlandish, extended kind of fight scenes. This one is one of the more elaborate ones. try to make it feel like it's a one-shot kind of thing, but then like they give up on that pretty quick.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And they do a lot of crazy stuff. It's almost like a thing to kind of break down on its own. But between the nutty characters he's fighting, because everyone's in costume, they do this thing where they pull out so you see the hallway.
Yeah, but everything else is dark. But you see the just that strip in the middle that's the hallway, and all of this is because he basically did punch Jesus Desaad before, and now everyone's upset. So they basically kind of ganged up on that room where he found the kid, and the kid says, "Oh, you're the one that's in trouble, and not me. I'm good. I'm making bank here." And then Jesse opens the door, and the kid goes, "See?" Because they're all standing there waiting for him, and he's just saying, you stay in here. I'm going to take care of this. And he just kind of jumps in, like just head first into this fight. And like you said, it's an all out just brawl, and there's fists flying, and they've got like scepters and all sorts of things that are just flying and swinging.
There's a double-fisted dildo that comes flying out, and
yep.
And one of the funny moments of the thing where it's a slow motion-ish kind of shot, and so when it comes flopping into the frame and like bumps Jesse on the head, it makes like a weird kind of like noise, like it's just silly in the moment.
And what was also funny when it came in there and like kind of just bonked him, while also being the double-fisted dildo, it also looked a little bit like a dog bone. And for a moment, I thought,
right, me too.
Is God here, like in his little dog suit?
Oh.
And a little bit of a spoiler because that comes up later. But that's what I immediately thought. I was like, hey, that looks kind of like a bone. Like, is there somebody here in a dog suit? Because that would kind of match for that scene. But yeah, there's just things flying, and I guess. They took a little bit from Marvel Netflix shows where it's like you got to have a good hallway fight scene.
You got to have a good hallway fight scene. I'm pressed for the name of it, but that actual shot of cutting away one wall and looking at the whole run of the hallway from a distance like that is I can't remember the name of the movie. Josh Brolin made a remake of it, I think. Not that long ago. I'm going to get yelled at for not knowing my Japanese action flicks, but it's directly lifted from that. That's definitely You dropped the word homage earlier. That's definitely an homage to that. So it's going on like that for a while. It's kind of a good run too, and this was an episode that kind of like constantly shifted gears and was giving you a lot of craziness and in different moments. But this was probably the one set piece that's the most crazy.
And it goes on. Like they spent a lot of time on this fight. And
it's got like phases to it.
It does, because he just keeps going. And he's punching, and then he's grabbing scepters and swords and knives, and just like he's cutting people and gouging people's eyes out, and just smashing them into walls. And then you keep going. It keeps going, and then finally he kind of gets backed up against this door, and they just all swarm on him, and you think, oh, it's done. And then all of a sudden it kicks up to another notch, and he's punching and he's breaking through.
And when they swarm on him, like there's this weird sound, and I'm like, oh, something happened. And everybody goes flying off of him, like it's that scene in The Matrix. And like I thought maybe he did something like special, but
that's what I thought too. Like I thought he used the word or something, but no, he's just still fighting.
He's
and
just a fucking
kicking butt.
He's just like a little feral Wolverine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, which I thought was cool. I mean, we know Jesse's a good fighter, so having him get that fighting scene was really cool. It was probably a lot of fun for Dominic to film.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're just thinking like, Jesus, he is just murdering these people.
A lot of killing, and then when he gets the gun, it's clearly on. Anybody left standing gets a shot.
The head, just so many just headshots and just chest just bullets flying.
Yeah, and this is where it gets crazy because the whole thing comes to an end, and we've been watching it some from down the hall through a hole that I presumed was a keyhole, which is it was so tight on it they really didn't want you to know much more than it was a hole.
Yeah.
And when it finally pulls back, you see that it's a bullet hole And if you're me, you know instantly what that meant, and it was like, oh shit, it went in the room with the kid.
The kid's dead. Like
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as Jesse got that gun, it started wildly firing around and things like that. And then you turn back and you see that bullet hole in the door where he left the kid. I went, yeah, that kid's dead. And then sure enough, he opens the door and you see that the kid there lying in a pool of blood.
Yeah.
And Jesse now feels bad.
Yeah, and this is the part where, you know, earlier we mentioned that there was a tweet that I had gotten, and it's from Alex Jameson, and Alex has reached out to us a couple times as we've been doing this podcast. He says, checking in with you guys after last night's episode. Not feeling great about the show after what happened to the kid. One of my biggest problems with the show versus the comic is how the show has a totally fucked up morality, whereas the comics had like an ethical underpinning. He's got a follow-up tweet on that. This is no more clear than in the character of Jesse and his effectiveness as a hero, and in the comic, and the show's divergent views on his ability to do good. The show won me round on this point with season 3, but has squandered a lot of good with me. What are your thoughts? I'm not sure about the phrasing on that. This is no more clear than in the character of Jesse and his effectiveness as a hero, and in the comic, than the show's divergent views on this, I guess, is that, you know, Jesse's, and I think this is something that I've said before on this, and, you know, echoed it, I think, a few times, where, you know, the show has more of a wanton kind of thing going on, where like Jesse has a bloodlust or like this fighting streak, and that's not really as present in the comic. In the comic, like, he was a good fighter. And
he would throw down if he needed to. Like he would fight, and he would do what was necessary to protect himself and those he cared about.
And sometimes too, you know, him and Cass would just clear a bar of jerk-offs because it was a fun thing to do, and those guys were being jerks. But, you know,
but they didn't just kill random people. And I think what and I forgot his name, but Alex. So I actually I saw the tweets earlier, and I really liked what he had to say, because this scene particularly, while it was a really cool fight scene, diverged so much from the book, and it really brought home what Alex was mentioning about the morality of Jesse, where in the book he would beat people up, but then he would make sure that it was for the right reasons, and he would be like he said, he was more the hero of the story. Where in the book, and I reread it earlier because this was the thing that hit me the most, where I said, I don't remember this happening in the book. I know that it's been a while since I've read it, but I don't remember him just brutally murdering all these people because he punched Jesus Assad. Yeah. And so, you know, you see this then and think, you know, yes, really cool fight scene. The cinematography was great, but in the book, Jesse goes in there, and he's not alone. In the book, he's actually there with Cassidy and Tulip, because it happens at a completely different time in the story. And they're actually there chasing down the, I think it was the sex detectives.
Right.
I think because there was something having to do with Cassidy and a former girlfriend and stuff. So it was a revenge thing. So they went there in search of them. And basically Jesse's going around looking for Jesus Assad. He finds him, and that's, like I mentioned before, like he stumbles across this kid with the video camera, where clearly they've been doing stuff that they should not have been doing with the kid.
Right.
And he punches Jesus Assad, and he beats him. Like, you can see that his face is completely swollen, his eyes are swollen shut. Like he's really beat the guy because he wanted to make a point. Like, hey, this is not okay. Like, you guys can do all the freaky shit you want as adults with adults, but, you know, this is a line that you crossed. But he leaves him alive. And the great thing that kind of proves Jesse's morality in the comics is that he orders the woman that was in the room to call the police. Like, he uses the word and says, call the police and you know, and make sure that this boy gets a good upbringing, like the upbringing that he deserves, and let Jesus know when he wakes up and he gets out of jail, I'll be waiting for him.
And this is the thing that they do different in the comics. Like in the show, like so like these other people who are worse, like get their just desserts. Mm-hmm. But in the comic, it happens too. But in the comic, you're not getting on the show the speechifying, or the ranting that Jesse will do. And that's how we get to see and know his actual viewpoint on these things. You don't get any of that stuff. The show makes no time for any of that. And how, like, at least in the comic, you get a sense of, there's righteous indignation in Jesse, like in a major way. And even if he's like a little extreme in some of his actions, like he makes a fair, sometimes anyway, he makes an argument for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was a lesson given to the person whose skull is getting cracked. You know what I mean? And because we get none of that really, on the rarest of occasions does Jesse ever like kind of
justify his actions.
Make a speech or make a real point. Usually it's just actions that, on the surface, it just comes off like, oh, this is just a badass dude being a badass. And it's like, yeah, those people deserved it. But he makes them just seem more ferocious, and a force of nature as opposed to like a force of like good that's just been pushed to a limit in a way. Mm-hmm. Like the whole thing with Jesse in the book is like, he echoes a lot of these American kind of sentimentalities and points of view. And so when he does these things or is put in an odd spot there, like he's always pointing out like why, these like jerk offs are wrong, Mm-hmm. And, I always used to retweet this one panel where he's yelling in his Klansman's face and he's like, why is it that when like subhuman pieces of shit fucking want to like, burn crosses, it's always like chinless freaks like you, like, you know what I mean? Like, even if it was a little bit more dialogue here or there with these things, I don't think they would come off as quite like as savage, or at least like giving him dialogue when this stuff goes down. He's actually a quieter person in the show. Like he's like overall, like he doesn't explain or go on about things. Like, and I feel like for a show that wanted to set up Jesse as a preacher, and we spent a whole season with that. Mm-hmm. That's not carried through any more than it was in the books originally. You know what I mean? Because that was their thing. They were like, oh, you wouldn't even know Jesse was a preacher. Because we spend no time with it, and there's really no preaching really done in the comics. And I'm like, well, compared to what you guys now do on the show, it wasn't ministry preaching, it wasn't biblical preaching, but he was always going on about what's right and what's wrong, and there was a moral compass he was riding through, and that was always a point of the book. Yeah. Folded in with all the extremes of the story and the goofy craziness, but that was like his thing.
Yeah, and you also always had the kind of that the voice, like in the comics it was John Wayne, like he had that kind of like the angel on his shoulder, kind of talking to him about morality and giving him advice and how he should handle things and what he should do and kind of that kind of right or wrong and
eternal conversations,
Yeah, here you don't really have that. Like every once in a while you got his dad. Like it's his dad's voice that talks to him, and that's kind of his inspiration. It's not the John Wayne anymore, which I guess I get it. You can't.
Certain updating going on there, But one of the last things Alex added on was that and what's weird is it's like he sees that it's clearly a deliberate choice to move away from the comics on these points, and that feels like a very weird thing to do. And I kind of got to agree that, like, sure, like we've got 42 minutes to get a story that's propulsive and all that kind of stuff. You don't have time for a lot of this stuff, but
fit in all those different pieces, like the flashbacks with Cassidy and Tulip and the Santa Killers and Eugene and Hitler, like they're trying to fit all this stuff
so
in.
There's not a lot of time to give Jesse to even get into this stuff on a regular basis on any episode, really. But because that's TV comes from a different world than the comics do. Or novels, TV comes from this place where it's like every moment is super precious and it's all a commodity. So they get pulled into this thinking that, especially with broadcast TV, like we just don't have time to get too long-winded. So it's easier to say, well, look, we also don't want to come off too preachy.
Yeah,
and
but
if
you look at that fight scene, though, I mean, why have the gun? Leave out the gun, leave out the knives and the swords, and why are these people not just fighting him with the
dildos.
double-fisted dildos? And I mean, even you saw some of them had the chains, so he was like pulling some of them on the chains and stuff. Like, you can choke out some people with the chains and not kill them. Like, the fact that it just was so violent from Jesse, that gouging out eyes and just really like slashing and cutting people and slitting throats and things like that with just with such abandon and kind of disregard for the fact that these are just people. Like, they're freaks and they're weird, but
there was an article I had read from Dead and Geek which kind of went on about how this episode is darker and kind of more messed up than usual, and people can go check it out. The subheadline on it is what constitutes a bridge too far for an over-the-top show like Preacher. And I bring this up because I'm getting back to the kid thing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I kind of thought we were gonna feel more impact from that kid. But again, the compression of time, we have no time. It's a flashback. We can jump back out of it. We can give flashes and brief glimpses later on if we want to reinsert that he's thinking about it. But just that, if someone said to me, it felt like killing the kid was just a way to trigger Jesse to go have a cool fight in the hallway. Well, I'm saying actually, no, that doesn't work because the kid was dead after the cool fight.
Yeah, he was after the fight, but it basically was a way to trigger Jesse to then just, again, brutally murder Jesus Desaad.
Right.
Which is another thing that was completely different from the book, where Desaad shows up and goes, "You broke my nose," and it just Jesse's looking at the body of the kid, and then I think even Desaad looks at the kid, looks at Jesse, and then Jesse just flips and he punches, and you're thinking, okay, yes, he does punch him, he beats him to a pulp in the book, and then leaves him like that, but then because of everything that happened in that scene and now the dead kid, like he beats his head on what I think it looks like a sink, or at least like the edge of some kind of tub or something
marble,
but then he beats it, and then he just takes his foot and he just slams his foot down on his head and just completely crushes his skull. Like, he just, I mean, you don't they I guess they could fully show it, but they show enough that that his brains are now on the outside, and he did. So, and what I like is that, and I even thought of it like while the fight was happening and everything, I thought, where's the pilot? Like, the pilot went in there and just completely disappeared, and then of course now he shows up at that moment as Jesse is murdering Jesus Desaad, and he's just again uses that line, like, what kind of preacher are you?
Right.
Where he just watched him just
and it's and on a show where craziness is the meal of the day, I mean, every day, it kind of blew by me a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, killing a kid, obviously not cool. When they did it, I was surprised in the moment, but then we're moving so fast on to the next thing and not dwelling on it at all in the show. I kind of move along with it, I'm not trying to say, well, no big deal. I'm just saying, in that moment, I kind of just moved along, it was just kind of it didn't impact me that way. On my headspace when I'm watching it too is I'm dissecting it 3 different ways. I'm thinking about it in the context of this show. I'm thinking of it in the context of comparison to the book. I'm trying to give it its own shot in the moment of it being its own thing. It's almost too much gymnastics. So it's when it moves, I just move with it sometimes, and then you kind of you kind of, it's only afterwards when you're kind of digesting the episode that you think of these things, and it brings up another good point along the morality stuff, and what Alex was pointing out was that if you look at while he's kind of just beating Desaad's head in.
there's this look on Jesse's face that it just is full, just like he's lost in it. He's got this kind of like just feral smile almost that's happening, and you see it when he kind of looks up at the pilot, when he just kind of comes out of nowhere and is just like, geez, like what kind of preacher are you? And that momentary look on Jesse's face, it seems like he was gone, like he was lost in it, and he was gonna just kill, and then there was like no thought in it, and that kind of to me seems that's not the Jesse of the book, where he would have stopped. He would have known where that stopping point was and not crossed the line. Yeah. Whereas here, he just blows right past the line.
Right. And I'll close this and we'll move on. I'll use a quick quote from this Den of Geek article. I feel like this kind of sums up right where we are actually, and Preacher would like to believe it's being subversive, when in reality, this kind of storytelling is sophomoric. Worse, it casts doubt on the characters' motivations. If their confusing behavior exists mostly for laughs, but, is this really the reason to give up on Punisher? Maybe not yet, but it's, it's time to kind of like, I've felt like that before, where it's like, it's a kind of a crazy thing just to do for a goof. I feel like I've said that on here about nutty shit that they've done. All right, let's keep it moving along. Alex, I don't know if we actually solved anything. We might have cured
it led
cancer.
To a good discussion.
Yeah. I feel like something was achieved. We cured cancer or polio, something. Okay, so he says, the pilot comes in, says, what kind of preacher are you? They get in the car, they pull away, more or less. I'm skipping some stuff there. There's a conversation with him and the pilot.
Yeah, well, because the pilot's completely rattled. Like he's shaking. Yeah, sure. Like he's completely just he's rightly scared of Jesse, of what he just witnessed. So he has to use the word on him to get him to start the car and take him to the airport.
If I was Jesse, I might have been like, "Well, what room did you just come out of? What were you doing?"
Yeah, because he didn't have pants. Like the pilot didn't have pants. Like the pilot was wanting to go back into the massacre to go find his pants because he's just so just shell shocked and I kind of see that they almost had to put that in there because it had to be a little bit of a palate cleanser after what we just saw Jesse do. They had to be like, oh, we're gonna put this little fun scene in here where the pilot's just in shock and Jesse says, no, you don't need pants, let's go.
And as they're pulling away, as you mentioned, we do see God in the window, and he's wearing his dog cosplay outfit. So, like, was he there hanging around, or did he just put the costume on because he was going there to check it out after Jesse left, and he's like, at least let me just dress the part, just in case while I'm there. Yeah. While he's there, he decides to have some fun.
So I definitely felt validated. I was like, yes, bone, dog suit, God, yes.
I have made this connection. So we jump to Airstar, and he's with a young male staffer who we learn is now the new Hoover.
Yeah, Hoover 2.
Hoover 2, and then I saw someone tweet it out. I think I retweeted it on the PvP account. This was a missed opportunity to use the word Tuver. Should have called him Tuver.
Great.
And I was like, yeah, that is pretty good.
If he sticks around long enough, I'm going to start calling him Tuver.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to have to too. So so basically there's this whole back and forth between him and Airstar, where Star is just kind of, the kid's trying to do his due diligence, his job, his task, give him like info and stuff, and Star just
he's almost like writing. He's always writing up like some type of briefing. Like he's telling him what he's writing, and then Star's correcting him, and he's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then like you said, Star just kind of goes into this thing like talking about beauty and if he's attractive.
Am I beautiful?
Yeah, and the kid is just so deadpan. Like he's just so straight-laced.
Well, the best is the kid says no. Like the kid's just dead honest, and I'm like,
and you're almost thinking he's going to agree with him because he's his boss and he's the Allfather and all of this stuff, and he's just like, no, you're not. And I think he said something about you're powerful and righteous and wise or whatever, and that those should be more important. But then he also kind of sticks a dig in there where he's like, but beauty is beauty, So, and Hairstar's
So
just
the
like,
kid covers his ass at the same time.
ugly.
And then, so the kid manages to cover his ass at the same time. It's like, slipping in a little dig. And I was thinking too, I was like, oh, this kid's going to get killed. And, but then I was like, oh, well, no, maybe not, because at least Star will get the impression that at least this kid is honest with me,
Yeah.
like all the time. So I think that's what's keeping him alive, is the fact that he said that. But
Yeah, he seemed to respect him for it, so.
yeah. I think that ear is going to get infected. I
Oh,
don't
God.
know.
It was not looking good. It was looking all droopy and just gross.
So
and
let
it
me
looked
ask
like it
you,
was
because
green.
there was some, it's not, I don't think the show made it clear. Do you think it's his own flesh on his ear like that, or do you think it's Cassidy's?
I think it's Cassidy's. 'Cause
Okay.
when they initially cut them off and they put him in the little bag, and then he hands it to the doctor,
Right.
and the doctor then takes it away, and that's that bag that you see him put in that cooler. So
Okay.
I think Hairstar thought Cassidy's foreskins. He's a vampire. Maybe
Right.
it'll be living flesh that'll just kind of
Yeah.
be a good makeshift ear. But
Yeah. I feel like
Not good
that's opening up a can of worms. I don't mean maggots, for rotting flesh, but
yeah.
yeah, I feel like I don't know. I want it to be his own, only because of like the complications of like it's vampire flesh, if it's alive or not. Like, I've overthought it, is basically what this comes down to. Okay.
Yeah, well, you can't help it but overthink it, because you're thinking like, why do you think of it? Like, it's not even a skin graft; it's just literally a vampire's chopped off
it's the worst.
foreskin.
It's the worst.
It's just it was really weird.
It's
For him to
terrible.
think. Yeah, I would have loved to have been on a fly on the wall in the writers' room when they came up. Like, hey, let's have him create a new ear, but it's going to be out of foreskins from Cassidy that they chop off while they're torturing him. They're like, we need to find a way to torture him. And well, what do we do with all these foreskins? We'll make it into an ear for Star.
I mean, we're already giving. I just feel like it's just like, well, what happens then? Vampire blood, vampire-ish stuff. It's going to get infected. The only good chance of it working and sticking is if it's his own. It's a skin graft of himself. Is just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I've just overthought it.
And even then, like your body will even sometimes reject skin grafts from your own body.
Oh yeah, sure.
But the risk is really high. So for him to think that it was going to work out with a vampire's chopped off foreskins
Yeah,
that have
that's
just
not
been
good.
cobbled together in this droopy kind of ear thing,
It's not
No.
good. It's not good.
No, but then Featherstone comes in.
Thank you. Featherstone comes in, and she's like, I got it all figured out. She's here in the building. It's Tulip. And as usual, Hairstar could almost not be bothered with her at first, but
Yeah,
it's
he has no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Tuvor has a great line where he's like, we're busy, we're working, so unless you have something important, and Tuvor goes something like, I think she's lost it, or like she's gone insane or something, which I thought was pretty good, because she even gives him like this like glower. So it's you could see that she doesn't quite get along with Tuvor as much as she did with Hoover.
No. She wasn't expecting a new Hoover.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Tulip, as it were, and she's having the Rorschach test, and she's looking at all these different Rorschach. It's all brains and blood.
Yep.
And sometimes blood and brains, but basically he says that you're an uninhibited deviant, prone to psychopathic outbursts. And more, like he goes on.
Yeah.
But she gives this response where it's like, yeah, you know what? That's about right.
Yeah. She just resigns herself. Like, yeah, it's accurate. She's like, I failed, didn't I? So yeah, it's accurate for Tulip.
Yeah, I mean, for a show Tulip anyway. I mean,
yeah, that is very, very true. For the Tulip that we have come to know in the show, it's accurate, and she says, and he says like, I'm sorry,
yeah.
And she's like, it's okay.
and I think it in that it echoes this thing about these characters on this show. They're all fucking, we classify her as a deviant with inability to control herself, and meanwhile,
yep.
They're all pretty much the same. They all pretty much fit that description here on the show.
But yet he lets her go.
He lets her go. You know, somehow she's like, well, you know, if I understand all that, I guess that means I'm good enough to go. We cut to Cassidy and the Angel singing. Maybe I jumped ahead there, but this is where they were singing. You know, and they have a brief conversation. You know, go back to Ireland or not. And he's like, well, you know, if you're heading to Bensonhurst, there is plenty of Irish in Bensonhurst.
Yeah, in New York. That's where he brings up the New York connection. So that was the moment where I got really excited and thought we were getting the New York flashback, and then we didn't. So
yeah, but I don't think we're out of the woods yet with that. You know,
I think it's not far off. I think we will probably still get it. If not next episode, I think we'll still get it this season.
At some point, we're going to be back in Bensonhurst. Like, you know, I don't know how long we're going to stretch out Cassidy being in other people's custody kind of thing. But if we are jumping around and it's the only way to make up the lost time, I feel like I might have called this last season at the end as a possibility of a thing they could do, but didn't think they would have the guts to kind of do it, but that they would have to kind of do truncated versions of some of these stories and really kind of, you know, jump around and jump through them kind of a thing. I don't know. I feel like I might have seen it coming, but I'm not going to say that. I don't want to sound pompous. But we jump to back to Eugene, our space. He's in the bathroom at the diner, which he has a experience that as a young, naive man that he is, didn't see coming. He gets the foot tap in the stall from the gentleman in the next stall, which those may or may not know is like the down low gay hookup thing that happens. And if you tap them back,
you're in.
You're in. You guys
ready.
are pretty much
you're
like, hey, I'm down for fooling around.
Green light.
Green light. And so it's
poor
terrible.
Eugene, he just thinks, do you need some toilet paper? and the guy just tells him, no, put your mouth to the hole, and you see the little hole pop out in the stall wall. And still, he's poor naive Eugene is still just thinking, oh, you want me to put the toilet paper through the hole?
Because I can do that. And he's like, no, put your mouth to it. He's getting like annoyed. The guy's like, don't you know what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. Although then, you know, you immediately know it's going to happen as soon as he puts his mouth up to the hole, because we know what his mouth looks like as our face.
Yeah.
And I love the line where the guy's like, whoa. Easy.
He's like, slow down, buddy. There's no foreplay anymore these days?
Yeah.
And he gets annoyed and he runs out. I actually thought, in my messed up head, I was like, oh, that guy's going to be like more enticed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I thought it was going to be like, oh, look at that. That's exactly
I knew that
what I wanted.
I knew we were going to get some kind of backdoor comment, because that's what his face looks like.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't think we were getting. I just didn't think we were getting it out of it that easy. You know what I mean? So when the guy takes it in that direction, I was like, whoosh, thank God, fucking, because this show wants to get right up to the line with some of this shit, and you're like, how far are they gonna go? Oh man. So
well, especially after everything that happened with Jesse and House Desad, you're just thinking like anything's possible now.
Yeah.
But of course they get interrupted by the sex detectives, or at least kind of, sort of.
We get one of them who looks just like the book, and I think he hands off to somebody else who is somebody where, like, we're not. I don't think there was. I don't know if both of those cops were supposed to be the two detectives, but
I wondered about that, because it didn't quite seem like. I mean, in the book, the one sex detective has like a super heavy, like, Cockney, like, British accent.
Yeah,
he's got going on. Yeah, he's all about buggering people. So.
Yeah, it's buggering time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, one of them, like you said, he looked spot on as far as that goes. But yeah, they arrest poor Eugene and drag him out. So it was nice that we got that kind of brief sex detectives.
Yeah, and that's in that moment I was kind of I was really excited, kind of, and happy, because I thought we were going to go further with it for a second.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll come back. Who knows? Maybe it's some kind of recurring thing. Maybe it's a federal agency. I don't know. Like, you know, but
Yeah.
I think in the
It
comics,
sure seemed like that because the one guy busted in and arrested him, and then all of a sudden you've got these multiple cars that pull up in front of the diner, and
yeah, like
they're hauling Eugene out.
Yeah, and he hands him off to the other guy like it wasn't his jurisdiction or something. You know what I mean? So who knows?
And he even says, like, what are we supposed to do with him, with something like this back at the station and something like that.
Send him back to the orphanage.
Yeah, exactly.
They must have ran his name or something. But so eagle-eyed viewers pointed this out on Twitter. I didn't catch it, but anybody who was a fan of Farscape, I can't remember his name, but that guy who drives away with Eugene was one of the villains in the early seasons of Farscape. If anybody was a fan of that. But yeah, so we got a bell out of that scene for the sex detectives, and then as he's driving away, Santa Killers is like, oh, where'd the kid go? Kid was taking a while.
Yeah, although it didn't seem like he really even cared, and Eugene's like yelling the whole time.
Yeah,
Mr. Saint, Mr. Saint, Mr. Saint, and he's just, is he going to be paying? Because he's just sitting there at the table and he doesn't do much. And then all of a sudden he slowly gets up, he walks outside, and the car is taken off. Like the car is driving, and there's a great scene where the cop tells Eugene to slide over because he doesn't want to see his face in his rearview mirror.
Right. And the second he does, and he's out of alignment, that Santa Killers from I don't know how far away takes a perfect shot.
You hear the gunshot, you hear it go off, and even Eugene just right before it hits hears it and then just boom, right into the head, just blood splatter all over the windshield.
Ooh, what a mess.
Yep, but hey, they got their car, which was funny. We were watching it, and Palmer goes, "Hey, just wipe that down a little bit. They've got a car."
That's it. That's all you need. You get the keys.
And sure enough, that's what happens.
There you go. And because at that point it was like they're never going to catch up with all this walking.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Eugene says something about, he asks God to take care of the poor dead man and then forgive the Saint Killers for killing him.
Forgive the Saint. The Saint does nothing, which just is the same as rolling your eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from there we go.
And Eugene's driving, even though we know that he only has his driving permit. But
well, it's true. Well, he's it's more than the Saint's got. I got to assume. From there we go to the airport, and for a split second, because we were in flashback mode, I thought we were going to get a scene with Spaceman. Jesse in the comics runs into a friend of his father's.
Oh, yeah,
who had served with his father in Vietnam, and he gets this long kind of backstory on his own dad. And I thought for a second, I was like, oh, man, are we going to get that stuff? But this show doesn't have time for that. We would have gotten some crazy truncated version like we did with Cassidy's story. So, I mean, if we had gotten some of it, even in that kind of dosage, I would have been fine with it. Who's to say we don't get it still somehow? But, also, too, updating it all, I don't know if his father serving in any wartime even holds anymore because of the timeline and all that kind of stuff, or if they're just bothering with that at all. Doesn't really seem like it. But
it's true, because the comic, you kind of had the Vietnam War fit well within that time frame.
Yeah.
And here, I mean, if you think about it, Desert Storm?
Yeah,
not quite the same.
First Gulf.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not quite the same.
Doesn't carry the same weight.
Yeah, but we do get another guy who we didn't see in the first two episodes.
And we were like, God damn it. I was hoping we weren't going to see you. But Hitler shows up. No one can ruin a good time like Hitler. So he shows up.
Mustache gives it away.
Not as popular as he would have thought it would have been, which was an interesting line.
Yeah, exactly. Because he goes to try and introduce himself to Jesse, and Jesse's like, I know who you are. Not many of those mustaches around.
He's like, yeah, I thought it would have been more popular. But he does let Jesse know, like, Satan's dead. God is still on the lam. But mostly what goes down here is they have a brief exchange. Jesse's not really hearing it. And uses the word on Hitler, and he's like, choke yourself. You know what I mean? Choke yourself harder, harder, harder. And
the whole thing was Hitler was trying to convince Jesse that he had to come back to hell with him, that that's where he belonged, and all that, and kind of really cocky. Like Hitler was like, oh yeah, you need to do what I say, and I'm running hell. Like he thought he was powerful basically, and Jesse goes, you think you could basically, you think you could force me to do it? Like no one can force me to do anything. You know what I have, don't you? And then he shows him. So yeah, he makes him choke himself out.
Yeah, and I thought we were going to get rid of Hitler right there. To be honest with you, I thought this is going to be great. We're done. We're done with this guy. He's just going to choke himself out and then die right there. And sure, if he goes back to hell, like whatever, like he's probably still in charge back there. He'll come back, but maybe
That's
not.
That's exactly what I thought was going to happen, because he's already dead. So if he dies again, he would just go back, right?
You know,
but
I don't know.
Jesse lets off. Like he orders him to stop. It's like, excuse me, I'm sorry. So you don't follow through with Hitler, but yet you murder everyone in Assad Assad? Like, what the hell?
Of all the people to let go. You know, and like the only reason I can think of to do that is because we have a more interesting way to wrap up the Hitler thing later on. Like otherwise, this was the moment. You know what I mean? Because we're not going to let that linger forever.
No, but this was kind of almost that Jesse that we know from the comic though, where he was trying to teach him a lesson. Like he was showing him how he was powerful and the power that he had, and you know Hitler had no way of controlling him or forcing him to do anything, and so that was kind of that was a lot like Jesse. He was proving a point. He was going to a certain extent and then stopping. So,
and I think in the broad stroke for the series, this scene's about them reminding the audience of Jesse's mission, because we don't talk about it very much, and to plant the seed of that, you know, God is avoiding him. And that Hitler's like, he's not going to talk to you. He's never going to let you talk to him. You're never going to be able to be in his presence. He's not going to let that happen. You know what I mean?
That was Jesse's point, where he's like, well, he doesn't have to let me do anything. Yeah. He's like, I'll force him.
Yeah, and it'll be an interesting thing to see how those final moves and machinations go down compared to the way they go down in the comic. How Jesse finally wins the day, more or less. Not to give spoilers away, I guess. I don't know. If you've read the books, you know what happens. But, how will that play out? And, I think we're still in a path where they could. I'm not saying it can't, but I think they're just setting the seeds a little bit of reminding people what the dynamic is, kind of a little bit. God's avoiding it because God is afraid the word will work on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
They don't say it quite outright, but that's why else would God avoid him so much?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So basically, and Jesse storms off that, like, well, don't worry, I'll talk to God. Me and him, we're gonna have a little chat.
Well, basically, his flight is ready. Like,
that's it. That's right.
He's ready to board. Like, and what I thought was the pilot honks. Like he beat. And like, wait. Do planes have horns? Like, I don't remember hearing a plane have a horn.
And I'm thinking they probably do. I mean, they don't need them, I don't think, outright. But I was thinking, just, well, if you're kind of moving around on the tarmac, maybe it might be of help at certain times.
I guess, but I thought it was the weirdest thing. Like, he was just peeping at him from the plane, and just like, okay, time to go.
Well, the horn itself is also silly, too. It's a little bit of like a meep, meep. It's like an old Studebaker horn type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we jump to back to Masada. Featherstone is hunting Tulip. She's trying to find Tulip. Tulip is hunting and trying to find Cassidy. But Cassidy is on his way to Bensonhurst, basically.
Yeah.
He's getting shipped out. But he's got that...
wrapped up like Dr. Lecter.
Yeah. Which is a smart move. But
he's a vampire.
But he's got a feather in his hand, which is super obvious. You know what I mean? But...
yeah, which he got from the angel. Like that was something that happened during one of the scenes where he kind of like wiggled his wings and it fell down right in front of Cassidy, and Cassidy saw it, And at that point, you didn't see him picking it up. But then, yes, when they're leading him away, his hands are kind of behind his back, and he's got the kind of blood-covered feather in his hands, and he's kind of smiling behind the Lecter mask.
So I kind of wonder, like, what we're supposed to make of that. Like, is I thought maybe like what he's going to try and pick his way out with the quill end of it or something, or
there's that, or it has magical angel properties.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Maybe it's supposed to do something. I don't, it's not a thing I think that happens in the book in any way. I don't know. Maybe he's going to give himself another tattoo with it. I don't know.
Maybe, but Tulip gets to that cell like after he's been already taken away, and she has that exchange with the angel where he tells her, "Oh yeah, he's been sent to Bensonhurst." So
yeah, so now she knows where he's going.
Yep.
And this is just going to further separate the group. Now they're really all in different places. As we go forward a little bit, we go back to Arseface and Saint Killers. Oh no, this is we mentioned this already. This is they're in the car. Arseface doesn't like killing, and then and Saint's just like, well, you could tell God all about that. Like, he don't care. And then pretty much we go into the last scene, which is Jesse on the plane. There's a little bit of turbulence. He thinks Tulip is behind him for a split second. It's one of those things. She's not really there.
He had a few of those in the, I think it was the first episode where he imagined Cassidy was there. He imagined Tulip was there. So now again he imagines she was there, and again he kind of feels guilt.
Yeah.
Where she's saying, "I can't believe you left me behind."
Mm-hmm.
And then the turbulence turns into more turbulence, and then all of a sudden the plane is going down.
Yeah, and the pilot's like, "Oh, well, what's that? What is that? Like, oh, it's something crazy." So we're not going to know what that is until next week.
Exactly.
So that kind of brings this episode to a wrap. I didn't see the preview for next week yet. I don't know if you did.
I did.
What do you remember from that, so that you can fill me in? Anything cool?
So the only thing I remember is that we apparently see Jesse and the pilot in a raft in the ocean, so that the plane goes down and they're just floating there in the ocean, and I thought that was interesting. So I guess en route to Australia they go down, and we don't quite know how, so I guess we'll find that out. And then I think they showed it.
That means that when he fell out of the sky in the other episode, it wasn't out of that plane.
It wasn't out of that plane. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, if that plane did go down, then he must get another plane at some point. So, and I think they showed again Cassidy at Bensonhurst, and I think that was basically the gist of it. Like, it wasn't a lot to it.
Yeah, I'm sure there was it goes by pretty quick, those previews. So, all right. Any thoughts about going forward? Anything you're really hankering to see, or hoping to see happen, or where do you see it going? You got any thoughts about the future of the show? These kinds of things, the paths or anything. I'm not getting that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see where we go from here with Jesse. Kind of like that morality aspect of it, and does he continue to just push past the line where we're thinking Jesse from the comics might have not done that? The other thing, like I mentioned now a couple of times, I'm hoping we get more of Cassidy's backstory, because I think there's at least one whole book that's just all Cassidy.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of interesting details, and so that New York flashback of Cassidy kind of as he's going through the ages is really interesting, and it would be cool to see if they managed to pull that off. Obviously, as they did with the Irish one, probably a much more truncated version. I think the other thing that I would really love to see is Eugene become the rock star, like the punk rock star.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day.
Storyline.
Look, if you're looking for a place to leave him at the end of the series,
that's where I would imagine it
bad place. Like if like all of a sudden like he was getting famous, like in the last episode, like, you know,
or even the Santa Killers goes after Jesse or takes off and then just leaves Eugene somewhere, and he just has to, you know, make his own way, and then somehow gets into some other crowds because of the way he looks,
Sure.
and you know, hangs out with some punk kids and thinks he looks, you know, wicked and all this other stuff.
right.
And then he just, you know, becomes this punk rock phenom.
You should be our singer. You have a unique sound, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And that just kind of that happens. So I could really see the series ending Eugene that way. That's how he kind of.
I think that would be like a hopeful way to kind of leave him. Like, you know, he's like the only innocent person in this whole freaking show.
Yeah.
To not have him at least be on some kind of hopeful, like, upswing
trajectory. Yeah,
you know, would be a shame. I think, yeah, that's a great point with him, because they're obviously not doing the whole. When he returns to the fray, he's like stone cold bent on revenge.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing, which goes away really quick in the comics anyway.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't last very long.
But I
think he's so like set on revenge, and then he actually sees Jesse, and then Jesse just apologizes, and he's like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. I can't tell who's more naive sometimes.
Yeah.
Arseface in the book or Arseface in the show.
Yeah.
I think for me, I know that we're going to do some jumping around and some time stuff, at the very least. I think one of the hints of how extreme that might be is that in the opening credits, right as the credits end, we see the three of them together. Cassidy's got the frosted tips in his hair. Jesse's got an eye patch.
Yep.
And Tulip is there. I didn't notice anything different really about her.
Tulip was Tulip.
Tulip was Tulip. So she had someone's head in a bowling bag or something. But I do wonder if all this jumping around, we could get some stuff from the Salvation storyline.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, we stripped out the Quinn canon already, but what matters most in there is Jesse's mother, which, I don't know, in many ways, the show really didn't leave much open for that to happen. You know,
no, unless they tie that in with Arseface, because that's kind of where that connection happens as well. Is that the one girl who I can't remember in the comic he just has one eye, I think.
Oh yeah, well his best friend Billy had one eye, and Billy was going to marry his sister Lori. That's when they were little kids. And he's like, I'm gonna marry my sister Lori, and Arseface was like, okay. All right. No, that was Jesse's best friend growing up.
Yeah, but I think there was a girl that Arseface fell in love with because she was also a bit of a mutant kind of thing.
Yes,
and I think it was because she only had one eye.
Yes, and I
think that's what it.
And maybe now that I'm putting this together, maybe it's supposed to be Lori in the comic.
Yeah.
I have to go back and take a look at that. But yeah, Jesse has this flashback to when he was a kid, and he had this freaking inbred friend who had one eye, and he was like, I'm going to marry my sister. And I think that kid gets killed or some shit. It's one of Jesse's crazy early life lessons. And so that would be interesting to see him end up with her. Yeah.
And then that would also would be a good way to then introduce his mom, because then she was also, I think, she owned like a restaurant or something.
Yeah, I think she was like a bartender, like a little bar
she had a bar or something, and that's kind of how they stumble across her. So that would be an interesting.
Yeah, because Jesse does that whole I'm the sheriff thing for a while, which is one of the. Don't get me wrong, that's a chapter of the book where it feels like, wow, we are really taking a break from the main story here. When I was reading that, I'm like,
we
it's
took a
good.
left turn.
Yeah, I'm like, it's good, but like, damn, we are taking our time telling it. But hey, look, the more that they can manage to squeeze in and jump around, I'm good with that.
Yep.
I'm happy as a pig and shit.
More bells. That's all we want is more bells.
More bells. Not so much cowbell, but just bells.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Steph, I think our mission is complete.
I agree.
All right. If people want to find you, we said it earlier, they can find you on Twitter, Bad Wolf Bay.
At Bad Wolf Bay 87.
87. I always want to say 78 because I'm so much older than you. And so everything is about the 70s with me. Then
87. Yeah, and if they're fans of the Orville, that has another season that's coming out, so they can search at Orville Lights on Twitter. We're there. They can certainly listen to the back catalog of all 5 seasons of Gotham that we did and 2 seasons of the Orville. So
nice. And from brain2keyboard.com, is that correct?
Yes, from brain2keyboard.com. That's my blog, and I write there usually about pop culture stuff, movies I've seen, a lot of the TV shows that I watch, and then just other things that just kind of happen around town or things I go to. So, yeah.
All right, folks. That's it.
And then, of course, Moving the Needle. I can't forget that.
Never forget Moving the Needle podcast. I could
That's
get
at MTN Pod on Twitter.
At MTN Pod. And listen to their episode about songs that they shamefully admit to liking.
Yes, we do have
sometimes known as guilty pleasures.
Yes, guilty pleasures. There's song shaming. We have, I think, 2 of those now. We have a Rocky versus Creed comparison. We did a test of time for the movie Do the Right Thing from Spike Lee. So yeah, we've got quite a few interesting, diverse topics that are out there for you guys to listen to.
Well, I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to say thanks for listening. Check us out. Follow us wherever you can. Preach vs. Preach on the Twitters. Follow Stephanie. Keep an eye out for her. You'll hear her back here probably before it's all said and done. Maybe next week we'll either get Palmer or Sarah Netzley. Those are a couple of regulars that you've probably heard on here before. And then
more friends of the pod.
More friends of the pod. So with that, I think nothing to do but just kind of close it out and say until the end of the world, pilgrims, or the end of the series, whichever comes first.
There you go.
Thanks for hanging out, Steph.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.